Ever had one of those nights where something feels off, but you can't quite put your finger on it? Imagine being alone on the open road at midnight. No cars, no lights, just you and your truck. And then you see it. A figure standing at the side of the highway, staring you down. But when you blink, it's gone. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Hello everyone and welcome to Creepy Chillz. But for John, a seasoned trucker, it's just another haul. Or so he thought. John had been behind the wheel for over 15 years, and tonight, like every other, he was making his usual route down the desolate backroads. It was a stormy night, with rain lashing against the windshield and lightning splitting the sky. His Freightliner rumbled steadily over the wet pavement, headlights slicing through the misty air. He'd been driving for hours, and already he was starting to feel the fatigue set in. The soft hum of the engine was oddly comforting, a lullaby of sorts, until he saw it. There, at the side of the road, standing in the pouring rain, was a figure. Tall, thin, and draped in a heavy cloak, its face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. John's heart skipped. It was like a scene from one of those old horror films, but he quickly shook his head. "Just the rain messing with my eyes," he muttered, trying to dismiss the eerie sensation creeping over him. He pushed the gas pedal, not once looking back. But as he sped past, he caught something. Just for a split second, the figure's eyes glowing an unnatural shade of red. He grew more anxious and couldn't let go of this feeling that something was off. His truck was heavier. It felt as if it pulled itself, or worse, if something pulled him. Every glimpse in his rearview mirror looked like a staring contest. He could see shadows scurrying behind the lights, but when he turned around to look, they were gone. Minus came and went. The tension went nowhere. His gas was low. The next truck stop was miles down the road. Desperate, John selected an old, rusted station off the road. No vacancy, in faded neon lit up the sign. Yet, not one car nor one truck was seen. It lay as if forgotten. He pulled in, the tires crunching loudly on the gravel lot. As he stepped out to fuel up, the air felt too still. The storm raged, but there was no wind. No sound, just the soft hum of his truck's engine. And then he heard it. A soft tap on the back of his cab. A light knock. John spun around, his heart racing, but there was no one. The lot was empty, save for his truck. He chalked it up to nerves and got back in. But then, his eyes froze. On the passenger seat lay a crumpled, weathered piece of paper. He hadn't seen it before. Cautiously, he picked it up. The map was old, the edges torn. He did not recognize the map, but what struck him was the red ink. On the back was a chilling note. "Don't follow the road at midnight. The road follows you." John's throat tightened. Was this some prank? A joke from some bored hitchhiker? Or something worse? He hadn't even gotten time to ask his questions before the engine suddenly, with a sickening thud, roared into life. The truck bucked forward, lurching in an unfamiliar way. Slamming on the brakes did little to halt it, but then the truck simply would not yield. No matter how hard he struggled to hold control over the steering, it steered on its own. Rain pounded against the windshield as he sped down the highway, but the strange feeling only grew worse. He glanced in the rearview mirror, only to see something worse than shadows. Eyes. The glow was faint, but unmistakable across vast distances. He squinted. They weren't from another vehicle. These eyes were watching him, staring at him. Hundreds of them. Dozens of figures, standing just outside the lights, watching his every move. Panic ran through him. The truck picked up speed, more than it was supposed to. His heart pounded in his chest. He tried to pull over to stop the truck, but it was as if the wheel wasn't even his anymore. And then, there they were. Figures emerging from the woods. Pale faces twisted into an expression of horror or worse, eyes glowing. They were walking toward him. Slowly. Methodically, John's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. But as the figures drew nearer, their faces twisted into grins that were anything but friendly. The truck swerved, as if trying to avoid them, but there was nowhere to go. The figures surrounded him. Hundreds of them. No longer human. Their eyes burning through the rain, their mouths agape, whispering his name. A soft voice, coming from the darkness outside his window, sent a chill straight to his bones. You shouldn't have stopped. John's eyes shot to the passenger seat. The torn map was there again, the red ink still fresh. But this time, there was more written on it. Now you're part of the road. The truck screeched, its brakes failing. His vision blurred as the figures closed in. The engine sputtered, and the truck's headlights flickered. John tried to scream, but his voice was stifled. He was trapped in a nightmare, and the road had him now. The following morning, an isolated trucker traveling down this abandoned lot would discover John's Freightliner, still running. Yet, no one could see John. There was no struggle, no attempt at escape. Only a crumpled map on the passenger seat was left behind, with a message written in fresh, red ink. Don't stop on the midnight haul.